Welcome to Sphinx Talk. I'm your host, Brother Eric Christopher Webb, and today we have a very special guest, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated's newly installed 37th General President, Brother Lucien J. Metellus Jr. Brother Metellus, welcome.
Brother Webb, great to see you again. It's a pleasure to be here on this new occasion of me becoming General President, and I'm excited about today's interview.
Well, congratulations, and I think the brothers will find this an amazing treat to have a chance to learn a little bit more about you. Obviously, they learned a lot about your personal life and things of that nature and your Alpha agenda during your campaign. Mm-hmm. And so we are going to expand from talking about your Alpha journey to your job, your career, your first 100 days, and also even get into which, the biggest challenge you think that Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated and other D9 organizations face in this era, as well as we're going to think a lot further forward. What do you think or hope will be the legacy that you leave?
I'm looking forward to it, Brother Webb. So first and foremost, I want to just start off by saying you've done a wonderful job with Sphinx Talk.
Thank you, brother.
Brothers across the world love it. And as a global organization, you're being the editor of the Sphinx has really been a blessing to this fraternity.
Well, no, I'm very flattered and honored and humbled by those comments, brother. So that's you don't get your flowers too often, so I got to take them when I get them.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
It's great to have those flowers from the General President. So you can't. Not everybody can say that. So let's jump right in, Brother Metellus. Let's talk a little bit about your life, who you are. Let's start there. Where are you from originally?
Originally, I'm a New Yorker, bred and born. Was born in Brooklyn, New York, and grew up there. Went to Holy Cross School, then moved to Queens when I became a teenager. Went to Springfield Gardens High School.
Okay.
And from there, I was able to graduate and was able to be accepted and completed my degrees at Syracuse University in policy studies, economics, and African American studies. Critical part of who I am is that African American studies component. It really helps shape who I am today in terms of the concerns of our people. Mm-hmm. And Alpha Phi Alpha is well positioned to continue to be the voice for our people. And being General President gives me that opportunity to really engage in something that I'm passionate about, not only policy, but from an economic perspective. But I'm also talking about our people and the success of our people. I want us to move from survival to success.
Definitely. So let's talk a little bit more about your family life. And also what do you do?
So my family background, my parents are from Haiti. Mm-hmm. So that's also always amazing. Interesting things that come from that is my wife's mother is from Trinidad and her dad is from Jamaica. So okay. She's also has a West Indian background. Both of us were born here though. Mm-hmm. We have our wonderful son Jeremiah and our beautiful daughter Janae. Okay. But as you know, mm-hmm. being an Alpha man, your family's bigger than just blood. Sometimes your family is as big as hundreds of thousands of brothers and sisters that help support you and guide you and help build you to be the best man that you can be. I would not be here though if it wasn't for my mother, especially my uncle, my aunts, all those people that poured into me early and later in life. Mm-hmm. But where you are right now is a testament to all those that have helped provide and guided you in that quest.
Now, were your parents or your mother, were they college educated?
No? Well, no, they came here from Haiti, okay. But education was extremely important to them. So for both of them, they did receive degrees after I actually got some degrees after I did.
Wow!
But my uncle actually had his degree before me, and my aunt, God rest her soul, she had passed away, but mm-hmm. she also had her degrees. My other aunt, one of my favorite aunts, because I don't want to say which one is my favorite.
Right? No, don't do that.
Don't do that. But she's also a pharmacist, retired pharmacist by trade. Mm-hmm. So mm-hmm. education was extremely important. And I think that when you talk about Alpha Phi Alpha, developing leaders, promoting brotherhood and academic excellence isn't just a GPA. It's being the best in the field of your field of choice, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean that that Brother Eric Webb needs to be the #1 social scientist on the planet.
Right.
But you should be the best social scientist that you can be.
Definitely, definitely. And we're talking about being the best in your field. And so you working what field?
IT.
Okay.
So I've been
okay.
in the IT space for as long as I've been in Alpha, actually. 26 plus years I've worked in the IT space. And I stumbled upon it by accident, actually. It wasn't an intentional plan to work in the IT space. And I tell brothers all the time that what I do for a living helps sustain my ability to give back to my community. So those degrees, those degrees I've received from college, those are really focused on providing service for my community. But my
Always back to the mission.
always back to the
Always
mission.
back to
But
the mission.
we always have to be mission focused, right?
Yes.
And so for me, the more important component is really engaging our communities. But the work allows me not only to earn a paycheck, but to expand my mind and think things in a more critical and developmental space in terms of the opportunity for our fraternity to use technology for the next century.
Wow. Now, what about your Alpha journey? Tell me about your Alpha journey.
So I will start with this. I was not interested in Greek life at all.
Why not?
Well, I thought it was overrated.
Okay.
And I always tell brothers, sometimes in life, it's not what you see in yourself, it's what other people see in you.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in college at Syracuse University, and the Delta Zeta chapter, great brothers there. And I was not interested in Greek life. I had family that were in other Greek organizations, and
Okay.
and I
We're not going to mention them.
no, we're not. We don't have to mention those, but they were all there on campus. When what I realized was a young lady came to me and said, "Hey, you would be a great Alpha," and I laughed at her because I didn't think that that was for me. But she sparked that interest and allowed me to do my research about the fraternity, and from there, and interacting with some great brothers at the time that were on that campus, but was able to finally get initiated in the spring of 1998 in the Zeta Zeta Lambda chapter in St. Albans, New York, the 239th key number. But there I learned got the opportunity to learn about not only about myself as a young 21 going into 22-year-old neophyte. I always tell brothers that was the right time for me. And I think a lot of times when brothers look at, it's time to bring a brother in, it's not only is it the right time for the chapter, is it the right time for the man that we're trying to bring into the fraternity? There has to be a marriage. And through that experience, and from having George Strong, who is my dean and my sponsor, and Billy Mitchell and other brothers in the Zeta Zeta Lambda chapter that invested in me, a Lewis Hurst, a George Barzy, those kinds of brothers helped shape me into the man that I needed to be. If it wasn't for Alpha Phi Alpha, I probably would have not been on the same road, concerned about the welfare of our people. They helped inspire me to take it to the next level outside of college.
Definitely. So, I've seen your TikTok videos.
Yes.
And a lot of other brothers have seen your TikTok videos. This brother is into fitness. You're a runner. You're doing long distance running?
No, I'm doing short distance running for now. The knees are not what they used to be.
Okay.
But ultimately, what we're really focused on, reason I'm doing that is for personal reasons, for my personal health.
Okay.
From my family history, the health concerns and different things like that. And I've got a weight goal that I'm trying to get to.
Okay.
And
Aren't we all?
And yes, and I always tell the brothers, when you were going on the way up, right? It seemed like then going on the way up in weight, it's always harder to go back down, right? And so I don't care how old you are, it always seems a little bit more of a challenge. But I think that's a great opportunity for us to kind of lean in about the fraternity when we think about.
And that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Is that going to be part? Is that part of your agenda, fitness or health? I know we're going to talk about some other pieces, but are you going to integrate that as part of your agenda?
So I think I want to pick up what the 36th General President Willis Lonja did with the Surgeon General Initiative and focus more on brothers' health. But actually a passion of mine is mental health of black men. And so I share this story because not to be morbid or sad, but my first assistant district director when I was district director of New York, Brother Qasim Rab, he and I worked very closely together. We did investigations together, and I always, from the Theta Epsilon chapter at St. John's University, good brothers of Theta Epsilon. So he and I had a very close relationship, and it was before the 2019 General Convention in Vegas.
Okay.
He hit me up on Facebook, and we served together in 2011 as district director and assistant district director. And he hit me up on Facebook and he said, "Hey, brother Metellus, I can't wait to see you." He always used to give me the nickname Darth Vader because we were both big Star Wars fans.
Okay,
yes.
okay.
And so I was like, he was my Anakin, I was Darth, and he was my apprentice.
Okay.
So a few months later after that conversation, I noticed, I saw him at a Theta Epsilon event and noticed that he was a little bit off.
Okay.
And off his game. And in my spirit, the spirit was telling me, have another conversation with him. But I was like, I'll just blow it off, as a thing. And a few months later, he committed suicide.
Oh, wow.
So for me, it's been a personal passion project of mine, not only in theory that we need to look at black men and make sure that we're focused on not only our physical health, but more importantly, our mental health. That is going to be an initiative where we're looking to partner with organizations that will focus specifically on black men's health and give brothers an opportunity. Alpha Phi Alpha can't be a mental health organization,
right,
but we can help point you to the mental health resources that you need. Another last thing, and I want to just add this as well. When we were on the campaign trail and we were going through, you'd be surprised how many young brothers are looking for some kind of a black mental health a black male mental health resources.
Why do you think there's a void?
Well, I think the void is several reasons, right? So it's generational. First part is that it's generational. When you and I came up, it was more about if you wanted to be a doctor, it was some kind of medical, like a medical doctor. And I'm not saying psychologists and therapists are not medical, but the whole the physical heart,
right,
the head,
right,
dentist, right, those kinds of physical things were very important in terms of pursuing a career in medicine, right? And we didn't really focus on the mental component of it because as men in general, growing up in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, we were always taught, be tough, do this, right? If you're going through some kind of crisis, we don't need to identify it. We just need to push through it, right?
Right.
And so now what I'm going to say is that we do have more of an opportunity with the younger ones that are coming up that are experiencing these traumas. And remember, we are the generation that grew up with September 11th. We're the generation that grew up with the pandemic. We're the generation that grew up not only with the Barack Obama presidency, but the George Bush presidency, George Bush Jr. presidency, and we're the generation that grew up with the Donald Trump presidency.
Right.
So these kinds of things have created these environments where younger people are getting more into this. Shout out to my chapter brother Ehrlich View. He is a pediatric specialist in mental health spaces. And those are the kinds of he's not a younger brother anymore, but
right,
when he came in, that was his passion, and that's what he's continued to do professionally.
So, we're talking about mental health, and it's interesting you brought that up because, some years back we had a new chapter brother that committed suicide as well, and that caught everybody by surprise. And so definitely, this is definitely a need within the fraternity. We see the trauma, the microaggressions. We've gone through watching our trauma played back to us by cell phone and body cam video of black men being lynched by police or whatnot. So definitely, this is definitely something that needs to happen. And I'm glad you're talking about it, and I want to salute you for that you are going to push forward with another, agenda, making this part of your agenda, because we need to address this. There's a lot of brothers out there suffering in silence, so we definitely need to deal with this.
And before we move on, I want to remind us that we're a brotherhood. And if you can't come to your brother, it doesn't have to be every single brother, but there should be a brother that you can reach out to, not necessarily a mental health professional, but someone that you can say, hey, I'm experiencing these challenges, but we should be able to provide the resources to help that brother get to the services that they need.
Indeed. So, this is a great segue. This is part of your agenda. So let's get into your first 100 days. What's that going to look like?
So first 100 days, we're really going to be focused on creating 100 days for the next 20 years.
Okay.
So what does that look like? So in any significant change, in any kind of way you want to move an organization forward, you need a strategy. And that strategy is really going to be focused about updating the national programs. We really need to, and I know that you love branding, so I want to just go into this part of it. We have a couple of things. We have chapters all across this country with mentoring programs, across the globe with mentoring programs, but they all have different names. We need to brand it as one organization.
Project Alpha, Alpha Achievers.
Exactly. We need to make sure that we're branding, and that we need to focus from grade school all the way through college graduation. Little known fact here. It's not the fact that there are less black men actually going to college. It's the fact that there are less black men graduating, right? And we have not done the best job of also incorporating and I'm not talking about Alpha as a society. We have not done the best job of actually making sure that through the pandemic, through these group of kids, that they've been prepared for even high school. So as Alpha Phi Alpha and the other D9 organizations, we really need to focus on making sure that we are preparing our young people to not only be successful in college, but to be successful in grade school and high school. Academic learning has to be our keynote as an organization.
Now, do you think there's opportunities to kind of leverage capacity, because there's a lot of D9 organizations and other organizations? I usually don't mention other Greek organizations, but our Kappa Fraters at Kappa League, you have 100 black men that focus primarily on mentoring, and there's dozens of rites of passage programs that are out there.
Right.
Do you think there's an opportunity, or should there be an opportunity, to leverage that capacity and work collaboratively? It doesn't mean that, that people are changing their programs, but, because I know the Deltas have the Embodied program, right? So, what do you see?
So collaboration is always a keynote, right? So when we as an organization go out on an international scale and say, hey, we're going to make sure that we partner with big brothers and big sisters to make sure that we have mentors to go to high school, go to college, and Project Alpha to make sure that
we've long been a partner of big brothers and big sisters.
And mentor and make sure that we're providing mentors. And we look at our brothers and fraters of Kappa Alpha Psi, our fraters of Iota Phi Theta, Omega Psi Phi Beta Sigma, and even the sororities, right? We need to make sure that not only are we partnering them, that we are creating a gigantic pool of data information. So the opportunity for us is really to leverage those partnerships that we have with big brothers, big sisters, to leverage those programs that we have with go to high school, go to college. And there is a capacity for us to get together with our fraters of Kappa Alpha Psi, our fraters of Omega Psi Phi, Phi Beta Sigma, Iota Phi Theta, and all the sororities to create a database, because we don't have a shortage of young black boys and girls that need mentorship, that need examples of strong black
There's
men.
no competition here.
Right. There's no competition because there's not a shortage of mentors that are needed, 100 black men. All of us can work together and collaboratively, because we need to identify all our young black brothers and sisters and people of all the diasporas and make sure that we're engaging them and being proper mentors and strong mentors for them. That is the opportunity that we have, and that is the opportunity we have to lean into.
Definitely. So we're talking about the general programs. You're talking about Project Alpha and upgrading that. And for those that don't understand what our focus for Project Alpha, and Project Alpha started in the 70s?
In the 80s.
80s.
Yep,
80s.
Out of the Midwestern region. And so the thing with it started in the 70s with a chapter in the Midwestern region, but I believe later in the 80s became a national program.
And that dealt with teen pregnancy.
And
STDs.
Not only teen pregnancy and STDs, but male responsibility when it comes to sexual conduct, right? And I think that's even more relevant today, not necessarily, even though we know that the rate of teen pregnancies is
down. Right.
The issue is that we're living in a society, and that it's a good thing, I would say, in some aspects, that even though it's more challenging for us as men, that women are now having more agency over their own bodies, which is a great thing.
Right.
The thing is that we as men now even have more accountability to young men to provide them spaces to understand what does consent look like? What do relationships now look like? How and why? Even as young men on the other side of it, what is consent for you? What does that look like? How do you enter into a relationship with a partner? And those kinds of things is what Alpha Alpha can do to Project Alpha. But now we can expand that, not only to include that, but for the development as a man in total. Let's talk about, are we really teaching our young people about economic opportunity? Are we teaching our young people about global initiatives and policies and things of that nature that directly affect them. Why should they vote? Really? And that's really a good question. Donald Trump, there will be a day that Donald Trump will not be on the ballot. What is our interest in voting? Not as necessarily as a collective, but as your individual self. What are your political interests, and do they align with anybody?
And the interesting part is that we watch social media, and it's amazing the level of, and I hate to say this, ignorance among a certain segment of black men and boys. And I believe personally it's largely due to their lack of understanding and knowledge of the political process, because you hear commentary about, what did this person do for me, and they can't do, and you're like, well, that's Congress, not the presidency.
Right.
When we were growing up, we had Schoolhouse Rock, right? And suddenly folks don't have these tools. They're not learning this in school for some reason, in civics class, and so they don't have an understanding of how government works, who's accountable, and why their votes matter.
So I will say this. I think that alpha is generally a microcosm of the society. So when I engage brothers, they don't understand what is the role of the general president, what is the role of the board of directors, what's the role of the general convention, right? And or the supreme governing body, and how those all work together. And so the same thing with the United States government. It's not, because it's not given to you in a soundbite or a 60-second or a 30-second
or a TikTok video.
Or a video. It's not given you in this way that you receive information. What you look for, and I will tell you this, our politics has turned into more of an area of entertainment and branding. It's so perfect example, and regardless of how you fit in the political spectrum, let's talk about the stimulus checks that were sent out during the pandemic, right? So we know for several reasons that there were Republicans and Democrats that had concerns about these economic opportunities that were driven with the stimulus checks. But what happened, regardless of whether you agreed with it or not, for some reason the Republicans were fine with President Trump signing his name on those checks
that he was against,
right? And so what does that tell us? And then when we talk to our people in the communities, what did they say? Well, I support this person because he gave me a stimmy. Right? And so the question becomes, we need to adjust the way we provide that information to young people, right? And so during the election, and this will be shot after the election, but this was shot after the election. But during the election, I applaud chapters such as and I apologize, I forget the chapter that did the TikTok video or the Instagram video where they were popping the balloon. And
yes.
And so those kinds, we need to shift our thinking that we can't do massive education in 30 minutes because most people are not watching 30-minute shows. If they are watching those shows long term, they're binging them, right? And so we have to create an interest and opportunity where we're leveraging our social media in new ways to engage people. So it may be that Brother Webb might have to do a 20-second TikTok about voting, right? Or hey, Brother McCaskill or General President Ward may have to do something on Instagram or do something on a podcast, right? Let's get Alpha Phi Alpha in some podcasts. We have enough great brothers like Brother Governor Westmore and other brothers like that. We past Congressman Charlie Rangel. Those kinds of people can be on podcasts advocating for the mission of Alpha Phi Alpha and also educating
in a nonpartisan way.
But also educating our community. There's nothing partisan about talking about policy.
Right.
There's nothing partisan about talking about policy. Alpha Phi Alpha has long been in the forefront of addressing injustice and inequitable policies.
Yes.
And so we need to continue to be at the forefront discussing that. And such policies are stimulus checks. It's upon us to educate the people how that all worked. Where did that come from? That's not saying we're supporting Republicans or Democrats. That's literally saying this is how we got here. And this is how we need to understand. We need to understand that when a tax cut or a tax increase is passed, it takes about 2 to 3 years for you to feel it. And it doesn't happen immediately. Generally.
And it may not happen during that particular president's administration.
Correct. And so that's why you hear politicians say, hey, that was my economy. That is true. Because when you came in, you were still on the coattails of either that good or bad policy that was adopted.
Right. So we're talking about empowering people and educating people in elections. how about educating people, our brothers, to be lawmakers and legislators? Let's talk about that, because I know that's a piece of your 100 days
Yep.
or your agenda.
So what we're going to do is we know that there are brothers out there. So let's start from the college level. We need to make sure that in every college campus, that every university president, chancellor, whatever their title is, knows the Alpha Phi Alpha chapter there. And that means the brothers on every college chapter that we're at, where they have capacity, needs to be part of student government, some kind of organization. And we're going to collect that data to show Alpha Phi Alpha leads on the campuses. From a alumni perspective, wherever there is a community opportunity, the mayor, the head of that city or community that we're in should know Alpha Phi Alpha. We're going to train chapter presidents on how to engage politically with local leaders, right? And the other thing that we're going to do too is that we're going to motivate brothers to run for office. We're going to make recommendations and pass them along to other organizations that can help train them. Not do partnerships or enter into agreements, but basically say, hey, brother, you're interested in running for this seat in your local city, and you want some training, there's an opportunity maybe with such organizations as Alpha PAC. And there are other organizations that do the same thing. But we're going to say, hey, brother, here's some reference points that you can go to. Not because we want to remain, like you said, nonpartisan, but we want to make sure that our brothers understand that there are opportunities. He may be a Republican, and we're going to help him get prepared for a run for a Republican office. We want to make sure that wherever brothers are, that we're training them to be the best civic servants they can be.
No, I mean, this is part of our mission. We develop leaders.
Right.
And I think we have to be about what we say we are.
Right.
And that's the biggest part of our brand. That's the first part of it. We develop leaders.
Right.
We say that very explicitly. That was based on our founding.
Right.
That we were put forth to lead our people. We didn't come together to just be fraternal and friends,
Right.
or socialize. We came together to lead our people and give back to our community. And so we have to continue to remain true to that. Now, you know, when I was in college, in
The good old days.
In the good old days, you know, I mean, that was part of the culture of Alpha. I mean, I'm not saying it's not now, but as a college brother, you knew that we had to run the yard.
Right.
So as part of running the yard, and it wasn't strolling, because we really didn't stroll. We did party walks here and there, but part of running, winning the step show, part of running the yard was not just doing service, but part of the running the yard was being strategic about having a brother from the chapter in a leadership role in every club, every major club or organization on campus. So obviously student government,
Right.
guaranteed.
Black Student Union.
The Black Student Union.
If you're in
the NAACP, the English Club, and also we wanted to control the budget from paying hell.
Right.
So we controlled all that. How can we? And I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying that we don't do it now, and there are college brothers doing it now, because we post
see it all the
campus
time.
leader, we post our campus leaders. But how can we encourage those college brothers to really take the bull by the horns with that?
So, great example of that is at Virginia State University, where our current Eastern Regional Assistant Vice President, Brother Yusef Omir,
Yes.
serves as Student Government Association President.
Yes, great brother.
Great brother, right? And that's an example of what brothers are doing. But what we need to do is we need to turn the screws in a little bit more and get our college brothers to be in leadership positions. But we need to train them.
Right.
First, we need to train them on how to identify the opportunity. Two, the second part of that is who's best in the chapter to do that opportunity.
Right.
Because not everyone is called to be president. Not everyone is called
Right.
to be treasurer of NAACP. But your skill set needs to match the opportunity that you
Right.
have. And then we have to build a base where we can provide successful outcomes. So that means that we've got to train them on how to win the office, right? It is more than just popularity. It's an ability to connect. Connection is something that you can't just necessarily pick up and go with. You have to have the ability to do it so people can feel like you not only care about them in talk, but you actually do things to show that you care about them. So, perfect example, when you're in student government, so a simple issue might be food at the dining halls.
Mm-hmm.
If you make that a critical issue and you relate to the issue that they're feeling, then they will come to you and say, hey, I see you as a leader because you feel what I feel and you have the skill set to help address this issue.
So definitely with the campus leadership and matching those skill sets is definitely something that we have to encourage and to assist with. College brothers want to be leaders and lead on issues. We get this when I get contacted from various chapters that want to advocate on behalf of the fraternity. And, you know, we try to get them to be very cautious.
Right.
Because it has to coincide with the general organization. So to be clear, no chapter can speak on behalf of the fraternity.
Correct.
Right. But you can make statements if you vet them with the general organization.
And we're going to have a process to do that. That's going to be very clear to each and every chapter, not just college, alumni
as well. Yes.
Right, because I think that there are things going on in the communities that we serve. There's full transparency. We know that and unfortunately, we know in 2025 there will be a black man killed by a police.
Right.
We do know in 2025 that our black women will be sexually assaulted and misrepresented. Right.
Right.
In 2025 we know that our black children will be miseducated.
Yes.
Right? So we can't run away. But Alpha Phi Alpha, the general organization, doesn't know what's going on in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Right.
But we have to give those brothers in Cincinnati, Ohio, in Cleveland, in Orlando, Florida, in Mississippi, we have to give them guidance on how to do that, right? To address those issues so that they not only can be leaders in their community, but actually do a little bit more than just make a statement. So what I'm hoping is that when we have a national issue, that we can not only give brothers a letter to send out to their communities, but actually have a strategic plan aligned with that.
And a toolkit.
So that means that if there's a bill that is of personal concern to us as an organization, we're going to ask the brothers not only to call your congressman, but we're going to ask the chapters to go to your local congressman's office and speak to that and set up an appointment where the chapter representatives go and speak to that local congressman about that issue. It can't just be send a letter. We need to actually be physically there and say, hey, Alpha Phi Alpha as a fraternity agrees or disagrees with this policy, and we need to know what your position is, and we're going to hold you accountable, because we can't say we're going to vote for it, but we do know that we have, in 2024, the Theta Rho Lambda chapter registered 200 people. The Epsilon Pi chapter registered 40 students on campus, right? We need to make sure that we match numbers so that they know that we're not going to tell them who to vote for, but we're going to educate them about the policies that you do or do not support, so that when they go in the voting booth, they say, does this person have my best interest at heart?
Yes, indeed. So we've talked about a few of these issues that you see in your first 100 days. Are there any other pieces of your platform or your agenda that you want to discuss?
Sure, great. So there are some things that we'll go over as we go through conventions, but some of the things that we're going to expand our use of technology. Right. We're going to use Alpha universities not only to train brothers on alpha processes, but life processes. We're going to engage in new and dynamic ways of making sure that we look at the structure of the general organization and look at our general office. We may have a capacity issue in terms of number of employees because we're growing as an organization.
Yes, we are.
At no time has there ever been more active members in this fraternity than at this point.
Wow.
And so we need to make sure that we are at the capacity in terms of office space, in terms of staff, and working with the executive director, we're going to be strategically focused on new opportunities around that. We're going to make sure that within the first 100 days, we're going to provide new incentives for chapters, and we're going to also increase our capacity for awards. I'm glad to be here on Sphinx Talk to be the first one to indicate to you that we will, in the fall of 2025, we will start our first Alpha Advisor of the Year award.
Oh,
so
okay.
We need to realize that our Alpha Advisors do a lot of darn hard work.
Yes, they do. Yes, they
and
do.
The reason,
God bless them.
God bless them. I'm a former advisor, and you are too. So we know the work that they go through, but that is probably one of the most unsung positions. We're going to also expand training for our field staff. We can't just do training one time, you're certified, and you go away. We need to make sure that we're doing consistent and continuous development of our members. And we're going to address hazing. And I think that a lot of times, and you, Brother Webb, you might know this better than I do because you've been an Alpha a little bit longer than myself, But I don't look at hazing as just an Alpha Phi Alpha problem. It's an American problem.
Yes, it is.
It's a cultural problem that
Yes.
we need to address, and we need to be on the right side of it. And so we've established a special task force with experts in the hazing field to address some of those issues. And we'll talk more about that along our regional lines. But what I really want to say is that no father or mother wants to know that their child is going to school and pledging a fraternity, whether it's NPHC, PW, historically white fraternity, majority white fraternity, or any of these organizations, or even band, and find out that your son or daughter has been killed, and no one ever goes out with the intent of killing somebody.
Right.
But we've got to get this cancer of hazing as an American society under control. And we have to really address it. And Alpha Phi Alpha will be strategically focused not only to address it internally, but to address it externally and make sure that we put strategies in place to support legislation that addresses hazing and to support academics around hazing culture.
And I'm glad you identified hazing as an American problem because we see hazing in schools. Right. We see hazing with sports teams and things of that nature. So long before anyone joins a fraternity or sorority, they have been exposed to hazing and the hazing culture and an acceptance of that culture. Right. So it's always false when people point the fingers at Greek organizations, Greek letter organizations. So I'm glad you're touching on that.
Right, and like I said, it's not to absolve Greek organizations, but it's to understand it's part of a giant cultural norm. Like you can't say we're going to fix the hazing. We're going to fix your cancer by cutting off one of your feet. Right. The cancer is still spreading, so we need to make sure that we're addressing the whole treatment of the whole body. Right? If we cut off Greek organizations and say, well, we're going to stop hazing by just stopping Greek life altogether, you're just cutting off an arm. You're not really addressing the big problem of our society.
And so with that, is there any other major agenda items within your platform?
Yes, and so one last thing I will share within the first, and we talked about the general office and we talked about updating the national programs. One thing that and we talked about awards. One thing I really want to focus on is making sure that we give awards for chapters by size. So there are a lot of smaller chapters
that are doing the work,
but they can't necessarily keep up with the bigger chapters in the fraternity. I won't call them out, but we have some big chapters very big chapters, but it's not any less work, right? And since our capacity has grown, we have almost 700 chapters now, right? We need to really look at what does that look like in terms of awards. We need to start recognizing not only our small chapters, our medium-sized chapters, and our larger chapters. Now that's going to be an opportunity for us to really advocate and really celebrate the brothers up and down the line instead of just being a competition. Because you know this, coming from a HBCU chapters, even HBCU to PWI college chapters, there's a cultural difference, a membership difference that we also need to address as well. We're going to be strategically focused on one other great thing that we'll do is membership development. I want to remind you that Alpha Phi Alpha, becoming an alpha is not the hardest part of being an alpha, right? I think a lot of times we celebrate the process that we came to get into the organization more than we celebrate being in the organization.
But we were always taught the pledging began after.
Right. And so what does that look like? That looks like that we have to start training them for a lifelong commitment. So after you're initiated, there has to be more training and development for you as a brother. You need to know your ritual. You need to know your organizational structure. You need to know where you fit in the plan. So we're going to actually start doing some real world development around it. I want to share the secret now, but we're going to start when brothers come in, and brothers get reclaimed or retained, we're going to start doing some personality assessments. Figure out where you belong in that chapter, because not everybody, let me be honest with you, the 25-year-old brother Metellus is not the brother Metellus now. That 25-year-old brother Metellus could party. But now that 25-year-old brother, this brother Metellus can barely keep up after 10 o'clock. So
day parties only.
So, but what we need to do is make sure those brothers that are in that social spaces, we're putting them in the right position to be successful. Because retention is more about making sure that you're in the right space for the success versus trying to push you into something that you're not really wanting to do.
So you're talking about retention. What about, and I hate to use the word, reclamation?
Right, reclamation and reactivation. So I've always called retention and reclamation cousins. They're not the same thing.
Right.
But they're related, right? So from a reclamation standpoint, we're going to have our 1-9 day in January. But the more important thing is that when we have to actually give the chapters the empowerment to know where these brothers are, and we need to train chapters on the best methods to reclaim brothers, right? Reclamation, the general organization can have any kind of mandate and everything else, but reclamation and retention is about relationship, and most relationships happen at the chapter level. And so we need to really focus on those opportunity zones where the chapters are struggling with reclamation and retention, and retrain them on how to be, I don't want to say brotherly because we're all good brothers, but really focus on those relational aspects. When you pick up the history of Alpha Phi Alpha development in college life, that is not a story about dates, time, and places. It's actually a story of relationships, right? And those relationships help bond and create us. You're a new chapter brother. It was because of those relationships that Thurgood Marshall found his way into law school, right? It's relationships that help us grow as an organization. It's relationships that will primarily be our focus instead of looking at just pure numbers. And numbers will play a part in it. Don't get me wrong. We need to make sure that we're developing our brothers to be the best relationships that we can have with each other.
Definitely. Relationships are definitely the key. And I want to say, though, how to, and with the relationship piece in using as a part of reclamation, one of the challenges, and this hits me, this is personal to me because, I'm constantly, reclaiming my line brothers and others who may not have been active or involved with the fraternity literally since they graduated, right? They led their lives, had families and things of that nature. So they have an old perspective of the fraternity. Add to it, they have a chapter-centric perspective of the fraternity, because for some brothers in the 80s and earlier, a lot of brothers didn't attend a lot of conventions or, and weren't engaged that way. So they don't know the workings, unfortunately, of the fraternity.
And that's because that we haven't, we as an organization have not intentionally focused on your development in Alpha outside of your chapter. So a perfect example of what we've done when I was regional vice president working with the brothers in the MAC and PA is that we had a signing day for college brothers coming out and joining an alumni chapter, right? And some alumni chapters did it. And what does that do? That helps college brothers feel like they're part of the organization, right? Because we're actively recruiting you. We're going to make sure that every college brother has a professional mentor.
So are you gonna reactivate that signing day piece?
We're going to work with we're going to work to reestablish that across the general organization, because signing day is really, because brothers, first of all, we want to make sure that brothers understand that Alpha is bigger than your chapter. And we would love for all active members to go to general convention. That would be wonderful.
Right.
But the reality is that's probably not going to happen. So we have to create and use our social media platforms, our relationships with the alumni advisor, the Alpha advisor, and the alumni chapters, and the area directors to really build relationships so that they can understand that Alpha Phi Alpha is bigger than their chapter. We need to also help them understand that Alpha Phi Alpha does not, we always say it doesn't stop after college. It truthfully doesn't stop after college, right? Because your relationships with your line brothers pass after you all graduated, right? But we need to develop a system where we're saying, yes, but there are other brothers out there that you can have that great bond with that you didn't lock up with, right? The bond isn't depending on you locking up with them. The bond is built upon those shared experiences that we have. The bond that I have with Brother B. Cook is not going to be the same as the bond I have with Brother Aldrin Ennis, right? It's not going to be the same that I have with Brother Malik Goodson. But that bond is built by us being together, right? And that bond, because we all can't come together at the same time. Not all of us can be great like Spring of '98, but
or Spring '89. But Spring '89.
But all of us can be great brothers together, right? If we have those shared experiences together, right? And so what I would tell you, the reason that a lot of us feel chapter centric is because we haven't had a bonding experience with a brother outside of our chapter, outside of our district. That experience helps us be closer and be closer and closer together. I love my line brothers. I love Al Sean Crawford, the world, Joe Edwards, Gus Simeon and Kirk Wade, those are my line brothers. I love them to death. However, my experience in Alpha grew because of all the other bonds that I built.
Right.
Doesn't mean I love my LBs any less.
Right.
But it also means that when I see a brother and I get that fraternal bond, like a Travis Nelson, Harold Daniels III, those brothers kind of became more than family to me because of those bonds that we share. Those bonds that we share with a Kelsey Rushing, those bonds that you share with a Darren Morton, those bonds that you share, and good, bad, or indifferent, those experiences help us bring us together. Dyer Boykins, all those brothers that you don't even know, but because I'm telling you that those experiences have helped shape me as a brother, they are just as important to me as LBs.
So you're talking about relationships, and we're talking about reclamation and helping brothers transition from the college to the alumni ranks. How do we, and this is ongoing, I'm considered an OG, right? But the younger brothers, I mean, it's the same. We all talking the same language. We all have the same gripes. How can we bridge the gap, or what do you plan, and how do you plan to bridge the gap between college and alumni and that relationship in terms of breaking those barriers down? Because again, I did not join an alumni chapter right away. I tried to. And when I went to an alumni chapter meeting, I really didn't feel welcome.
So part of that is what I talked about, training the chapters on how to receive brothers, right? Other part of that too is, and we have to kind of own this at a very fundamental level, is that we don't do a good job of explaining that your college experience will not be your alumni experience.
College days swiftly pass,
right? And it's just natural. It's no knock against either. But the truth is that when you were on a college campus, you saw your chapter brothers almost every day. Like either by intention or by accident, you would run into your chapter brothers. At the alumni level, we have to work harder to
you have to be very intentional.
Very more than intentional, right? You have to say, okay, outside of chapter meetings, what are we doing? Because, and I want to say this, and I think you'll appreciate this. You don't need Alpha to do community service.
Not at all.
You don't.
Not at all.
But part of the reason that you do community service is to build the bonds of brotherhood. It is us together doing it that is the reason that we're doing the community service, right? I don't need Alpha Phi Alpha to educate young black boys about STDs. But when I do it with my brothers,
it's special.
It's special, right? And so what we need to do is at the alumni level, we have to be very intentional. Are you doing events just for brothers outside of chapter meeting so that we can bond, right? Because we're all coming from different chapters, and it may be from across the country sometimes, across the globe. We need to understand where we can build those familial bonds. And it has to be intentional at the alumni level because it requires. So what does that mean? That means that we may have to talk trash in the chapter group me about football games. We may have to say, "Oh, you're a Steelers fan." I'm a Giants fan, of course. But if you're a Steelers fan,
yes, indeed.
And the Steelers beat the Giants on Monday Night Football, if something like that were ever to happen, I gotta eat that, right? But that's part of brotherhood,
yes,
right?
Indeed.
But when the Giants win the Super Bowl and beat the Steelers in the Super Bowl, then they gotta eat that, right? So you've gotta be able from a general organization perspective, and working across districts, regions, districts, and chapters, and areas and chapters, we have to be able to say, hey, we have to be more intentional, and that intentionality also goes across alumni and college relationships. We have that Charles H. Wesley Award for a reason. We need to build those bonds of trust based on doing the service together. We can't go back and make you together, but what we can do is we can make sure that you're doing things that are bonding and relational, right? We're going to create safe spaces for all brothers, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we're giving brothers opportunities to bond.
That's incredible. Let me throw a curveball.
Yep.
Now, we talk about internally. What can we do to address the misinformation associated, I don't even want to call it a trend because I think it was amplified more than what it was or is, the denouncement fad.
Right.
The attention getting fad of renouncing and denouncing and this mythology about, oh, we're worshiping the Sphinx, the Deltas are worshiping Minerva,
Right.
the Qs are worshiping a lamp and a genie, whatever stuff is made up on these TikTok videos. What can we do?
So a couple of things. One, as a believer myself,
and I know you as a man of faith.
Yes, as a believer myself, and I want to just re-emphasize a few things. The hundreds of ministers, pastors, priests, and various other religions that we have with
Heads of divinity schools
that we have in Alpha Phi Alpha are a bit more qualified to speak about what may be idol worship than someone on TikTok.
Right.
Just my opinion.
Right.
Now, let's take that to the next level. I want to throw a little bit of accountability on our side.
Right.
You have to be clear about what we are before you invite someone into the house, right? And that doesn't mean sharing our secrets or anything else like that, but what it does mean is that we have to remember that we are a perfect organization built of imperfect men.
Right.
Right? And we will and the brothers will fail you. I've failed brothers on several occasions.
Right.
Brothers will fail you. And I think a lot of the renunciation goes from the fact that this is not what I expected it to be. Right? And I think that we have to take a little bit of accountability on our side, because when we're vetting someone to come into our organization, have we really exposed them to the fact that we have perfect ideals as an organization when it comes to the fraternal life and brotherhood, but there's only one perfect person that I've known in the history of mankind, and his name was Jesus Christ.
Right.
And so for everybody else, and I respect my Muslim brothers, I respect my Hindu brothers, I respect my Jewish brothers, but I'm just talking about for me. And so for us to really get to the why, one, it's have we vetted the candidate and help them understand what they're getting themselves into, right? And two, do they as we all walk in our faith walk, whatever that looks like, unless you're not agnostic, but you don't believe in any God, right?
Atheist.
Have you really assessed yourself? And before you come into the organization and say,
and I think that's the biggest piece. I think people aren't honest about who they are or who they want to be.
Right. And I want to throw this in there, and it may be a little bit controversial. The high point of your alpha experience should not be your probate.
Or we should call it a neophyte show.
Thank you, neophyte show. But I'm talking about probate from back in the day.
Right.
But now it's
when we were
neophyte.
online, it's a neophyte show.
But now but that was the highlight of your membership. And nowadays with all these neophyte shows, you get TikTok and Instagram famous for a week.
Right.
And then that fades away. And so what do you do when that fades away? You're no longer getting thousands of likes and trends. That's when the real work begins.
And again, it goes back to why people join. I mean, what did they join for? I mean, I've seen the posts on social media, and people want to blame their antisocial behavior, their drinking, their promiscuity, or whatever else in the organization. The organization just gave you a bigger platform and more attention.
I've not had a drink of alcohol my whole life.
Right.
And I've been a brother. Right. And there are brothers that drink. I don't smoke. My dad smoked cigarettes when I was growing up. I don't smoke at all.
Right.
There are brothers that smoke. Nothing wrong with that.
Smoke cigars.
Cigars, right? But I'm talking about cigarettes, right?
Right.
And talking about marijuana, even illegal substances,
Right.
So if you're not strong in yourself, and I'm not making an evaluation judgment, I'm just saying what it is. If you're not strong in yourself, then those brothers, because I can point you to a group of brothers that are not drinking, that are not smoking, that are not going out trying to pick up people.
And are not being pressured to do so.
But if you feel like if you feel like you have to go that way, then I would say to you, then be more secure in yourself. If that's not something that you want to do. Alpha Phi Alpha was not founded to drink, smoke, and drug. Alpha Phi Alpha was founded. What was the first thing that we did after December 4th, 1906? We did service in a church. Right? Alpha Phi Alpha is really focused on the betterment of our people. But it's also focused on the betterment of you as an individual brother. And so if you want to come here and say, I want to renounce. If the Lord has put on your heart to renounce, go ahead. I'm even mad at you.
You don't need a neophyte show to do it, though.
Right. You don't need a neophyte show to do it, right? And do not let and do not let your cross be my cross.
Right.
Right? My cross is for me to bear. I have my own issues outside of Alpha. Right. And I could
we all do. We all do.
We all could easily blame Alpha for those issues, but the reality is those were my issues regardless of Alpha. And if Alpha becomes Alpha, and I don't want to speak on the other MPHC organizations, but if Alpha or a sports organization or gambling or something else becomes your idol, I would tell you to renounce it. There's no reason to idolize anything, right? Now, putting that to the side, let's go back to the fundamental question. You don't know, you're not clear about the organization you're joining. You're not understanding that this is a group of imperfect men trying to get right, right? And you have to understand, and here's the third part that most of us don't like. You're dealing with the cream of the crop. Highly educated majority black men, not all of us, but a majority of black men who feel they are right about most things.
Yeah, we're the smartest people in the world.
We're the smartest people in the world. And so the thing with alphas, as we all know, the thing with alphas is that you can tell an alpha, but you can't tell them much.
Right.
Right? So, and I mean that in jest, but what I really want us to focus on is the fact is that we are in the business of training you to be the best man that you can be. And sometimes, even I have experienced this, sometimes we may not always do it in the best tone, the best language, or the best way. When people renounce is generally one of three reasons. The organization isn't what they thought it would be. That's our fault. They weren't secure in themselves and made the organization an idol. And I would say that's their fault to the extent that it is. And the third thing is that we haven't always been we as black men are the most critical, I don't care what the media says, the most critical people of black men are black men. And I think that we need to think about how we talk to each other, because I think I mentioned this way earlier at some point today. The black man of 2025 is not the black man of 1990. And the way that we address each other, the way we connect with each other, the way we understand each other cannot be equivalent, right? When I was coming up, right, a brother used to say some rough things to you and you just sucked it up.
Yeah.
You just were like, okay, well, but that doesn't work anymore.
Right.
I'm not saying that you have to, handhold a brother through, but at the same time, you have to be critical and understand, who am I dealing with? How are they receiving it, right? And then sometimes they may come to the conclusion that you were still rough, but at the same time, did you ask yourself, did I deliver it in the best way? And if you did, then it is what it is. But at the end of the day, if we're really serious about being concerned about our brother's mental health, we have to be cognizant of how we address each other from these different spaces. So to get the long way to get to your answer is, we really need to focus on making sure that, one, when you enter the house, before you get in the house, you understand what you're getting yourself into. Two, we need to be more cognizant of the fact that if you're not sure of who you are, you should join no fraternity or sorority.
Right.
None. I don't care. I would not. If you're not sure who you are, don't join Kappa. Do not join AKA. Do not join Delta. Do not join SIGEP.
Definitely don't join Alpha.
Yeah. do not join any of these organizations, because they're not going to fill that void that you're missing.
Right.
They will only help you grow.
Right. So, what do you think? And I mean, again, all of our organizations have dealt with this, particularly in the last year or so that we've seen it. And I recall in the 80s that was a thing. People, these what I call these self-published prophets and ministers that were trying to create congregations, trying to create their own missions and whatnot, and then basically they would get the young Greeks to denounce or renounce and get their secrets, and then write a book about it, self-published book, and then be on the corner selling the daggone book. So we're all dealing with that. So what do you think, though, is the biggest challenge facing Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated and other D9, and even other D9 organizations?
Apathy.
Why?
So apathy is our biggest challenge, because we are over 500,000 members strong together.
Right.
Together, right? 500,000 members strong. But we don't have we don't have the major impact that we could together. Now, when it came
it's getting better.
It's gotten a lot better.
A lot better.
And under the leadership of Brother Lonzo when he when he was chair of the Council of Presidents.
And even Brother Ward as well.
Even Brother Ward as well. We got really impactful around the voting rights and making sure that our people had opportunities to get to the ballot to cast their vote. Now, there are other opportunities that we have here. We talked about saving our young black boys and black girls. We need to be more involved. We talked about economic opportunity zones. The AKAs have a credit union. Why aren't we putting more economic opportunities by home ownership for black people? We need to be opportunity zones for that. We need to build opportunity zones for us to educate our people on credit. We need to build opportunity zones to educate our people on other chances that they have.
Investing.
You know, we need our big, but the reason that I say that apathy is our thing is because our apathy says, well, because Brother Webb hurt my feelings at chapter meeting, I don't want to participate. And the apathy slows us down, right? And so what I would say is our biggest challenge is apathy, because even though AKA and Delta and Q and Sigma have all these great programs, we could be so much more impactful if all of us did it, if all of us got involved, if every alpha got active today. Do you know how many communities we could save? But we believe that by doing it individually, we're doing the work. No, we're stronger together. We are stronger together. And so what I would say is, one is apathy. The number two issue is that quality over quantity. And I mean that in the best way possible. Not everyone should be an alpha. Not every man that walks in here should be a brother of
Definitely
Alpha Phi Fraternity.
Definitely not.
And not everyone should be a Sigma Gamma Rho.
Right.
And not everybody should be an Omega.
Right.
Quality over quantity. Do they have and I know this might be a controversial statement, I can't teach you how to be a good brother. You either are or you're not.
Right.
Right? And so we need to look for qualities of a good brother, a good sister, first and foremost, right? I think sometimes we get the quality versus quantity conversation confused. Your resume may be great, but you may not be quality for this organization, right? Whereas a man who is going through this experience of life understands the importance of relationship and brotherhood and will be a better brother who will have your back and still hold you accountable. That's what the brotherhood and sisterhood really looks like. So those two things are very important. Apathy, we need to really address that. And it's more than just elections. We need to make sure that we're impacting in every part of our communities and making sure that we're choosing quality over quantity.
Definitely. So let me throw this pitch at you.
Yep.
I know it's early. You are the
newly
newly installed president.
I just said Happy New Year.
Yeah, newly installed president. But with all this, what do you hope, want, desire to be your legacy as general president?
I want my legacy to be that the greatest group of alphas came from this generation, and they mentioned those brothers more than they mentioned me. It's never been about me, it's about we. If I'm focused on just what I'm doing, then my term will only be 4 years.
Right.
But if we're focused on all of us and moving the world forward, then our legacy will be for the next 100. And that's what I'm focused on, is our legacy for the next 100 years. And we're working together. We want college brothers in leadership at every level of this fraternity. We need alumni brothers intentionally mentoring our younger brothers. We need to make sure that when you and I and the Lord calls us home, that we don't have to worry about Alpha Phi Alpha, because we knew that we left it in the best shape possible with the best group of brothers, so that we'll make sure that the next group of brothers, from 100 years from now, that new chapter when it's going to its 200th and how long? Well, 100 years from now will be how long for New? New was founded in 1912.
1912.
So it'll be 204 and 213 years from now, right? That 213th anniversary of New Chapter, that they'll mention Eric Webb, because they'll remember that this generation, New Spring 24, was part of that legacy that built New for the future. And so that's where we need to be. Let me tell you like this. I don't need to be trending number one in the world. What I need to be is, I need to know that every brother that I talk to every brother I came in contact with felt like they not only experienced brotherhood, but me as the leader, I need to live that brotherhood every day, because that's how we'll grow. So that's what I want my legacy to be. I want my legacy to be that brothers said, Brother General President Metellus was a great or good or average General President, but he helped me become the best version of the brother that I wanted to be. That's my legacy, and that's what we can do as Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
Well, I want to thank you for that, General President, and indeed, this has been a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show.
The honor is all mine, Brother Webb. You know, I don't get to hang out with a lot of highfalutin brothers such as yourself, so I truly enjoy the opportunity.
Well,
to
definitely,
speak to
good brother.
It's
definitely,
good to see
definitely.
you. And make sure you give that to the next brother that comes in here now, because I don't drink. But make sure they get a tip of that.
I haven't even tasted it yet. Well, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, brothers, fratters, sorors, the general public, this has been another episode of Sphinx Talk. I'm your host, Brother Eric Christopher Webb, and we're out. 06.
06, good brother.